Hello again, this is Kevin with Custom Micro. We've got two of the FS S5500-48T6SP-R Layer 3 48 port network switches. It's a PoE plus switch, dual power supplies, over a 700 watt power budget, but today we're going to stack these switches together. These switches support BVSS, which is a form of virtualized switch stacking, and we're going to take you along for the ride. So let's do it. First thing we need to do is actually physically connect these two switches. I've selected the last two transceiver ports on both switches for that purpose. They're port 53 and 54 respectively. I just have some 0.5 meter, 2 foot long DAC cables. These are designed for 10 gig connectivity. These are also made by FS. You can get them on their website. We'll put a link in the description. So I'm just going to go ahead and link up these two switches, and then we're going to take you along for the ride in the command line to set up the switch stacking. So this part is the easy part. We're just going to connect these two switches together. I'm not going to worry a whole lot about the way it looks. We're just going to get them connected up. And then we'll go and configure everything once we do that. There we go. We have our switches connected with those DAC cables. And now follow along with me in the command line and we'll get this stack set up. So I'm already logged in to the bottom switch with a console cable. And you can notice there on the screen that it detected those connections that were made between the two switches. You can see the state has changed to up. So those interfaces are online now. The first thing on an FS switch that you have to do, particularly on this layer 3 model, you have to type the word enable to get into the elevated prompt. So we'll do that. And now in order to configure the switch, we need to type the word config. If you type the word configure, it won't work. It's just simply config. So we'll type the word config. And now we're in configuration mode and we can make these changes. The first thing we need to do is enable the virtualized switching. So we just type the word BVSS and hit enter. And then we just want to type BVSS enable. And it says, please write BVSS configuration and reboot switch. If not, BVSS function invalid. We have a few more things we need to do before we finish up. The next one is we need to set a domain ID and a member ID. So it's going to be BVSS domain-ID1. And by the way, I'm considering this top switch to be switch A and the bottom switch to be switch B. So I'm setting up switch B right now. I'll go back and set up switch A once we're done. So just keep that in mind. It may be in a slightly reversed order from the way you'll do it, but if you'll start with the bottom switch, if you want that to be B, and then do the top switch A next, and you can follow right along with us. So we'll hit enter, and then we need to do BVSS member-ID 2, and then BVSS priority. So we'll go ahead and set this to priority 30. One thing that's worth mentioning, the priority with the higher number is the switch that will be the master in this switch stack. And then BVSS mode normal. It's also worth mentioning that if you're only stacking 2 switches, you can choose the normal BVSS mode. But if you're going to stack more than 2, you'll need to use the enhanced mode. And then now we're going to set up the interfaces that we're going to use for the stacking purposes. Again, if you recall, port 53 and 54. So let's go ahead and set that up. Keep in mind that on this particular switch, if you watched our unboxing video, our kind of overview, the switch port 1 Ethernet port is on the bottom, switch port 2 is on the top. So it's kind of a little bit of a reversed order than what you may be accustomed to. So keep that in mind even when you get out here to the SFP plus ports. We're going to have port 53 on the bottom, port 54 on the top. Now what we'll do is we'll select our first interface. So we'll do BVSS interface 1 type. It's going to be T Giga Ethernet. We're going to do port 53 group 2, hit enter, and then we're going to type BVSS. And by the way, you can always type part of the word and then press the tab to finish that. Saves you a little bit of time. And also, if you're not sure about what commands are available, I'll give you an example. we're going to do BVSS interface 2. If I hit space and then I type the question mark key, it tells you what your options are. And notice it says we need to put in type, which is going to, the description is port type, so we'll put in type. And then again, if we hit the question mark, it tells us what our options are, either our transceiver or our normal Ethernet ports. And so we'll do the T Giga and tab over again. And then now we'll do port 54, group 2. And then we'll do quit. And then we'll do write BVSS-config, enter. Okay, so BVSS is set up on our switch B. Now all I have left to do is to reboot the switch. Then we'll move our console cable to switch A. And here in a moment, we'll be able to see how our switch stack is stacking up. So I'm going to type the reboot command. Yes, we want to reboot the switch. And it's off to the races. So again, to get that elevated mode, we have to type the word enable. And then in order to get into configuration mode, we have to type the word config. And now that we're in configuration mode, we're going to kind of rinse and repeat, but we're going to do this for switch A. So again, the first thing we do is we type BVSS and hit enter. Then we type we can just type, apologize. This is what happens in the real world. So since switch B is finished rebooting, switch A is reporting that those interfaces are back up. So it kind of intruded on what we were doing, so we hit enter a couple times. And so now we can just simply type BVSS enable. It's going to give us the same message we got before. It's going to say, please write BVSS configuration and reboot switch. If not, BVSS function is invalid. So now we're going to set up our domain ID and member ID. And that's the important part, because this is going to be different than what we did on switch B. So we're going to do BVSS domain-ID1 BV. Notice I keep wanting to do BS. BVSS member ID 1. Then we're going to do BVSS priority 40. And then we're going to do BVSS mode normal. And now we're going to set our interfaces. So again, BVSS interface 1 type T Giga Ethernet port 53 group 1 BVSS interface 2 type T Giga Ethernet port 54 group 1. Then we're going to type quit to get out of the configuration menu. And then we're going to type write BVSS config, enter. And now we're going to reboot the switch. After switch A completes the reboot process, these two switches should be stacked. And we'll take a look at what that looks like here in just a moment. Switch A has been rebooted. Now let's take a look and see what our BVSS configuration looks like. So we're going to type the command show BVSS running config. So BVSS configuration information, BVSS enable true. It's hard to say BVSS over and over again. BVSS domain ID 1, member ID 1, mode normal priority 40, VLAN 4096, and then the MAC address mode user active member. So it looks like our config is correct. Let's take a little bit of a deeper look into this. We can type show BVSS management. So we have active member 1, standby member 2. There's our groups. We can see our topology. Now we'll take a look at the statistics. Show BVSS statistics. There's that information. Okay, now for the exciting part. Let's take a look at that running configuration and let's see what it looks like. So let's do a show run. You can hit tab and finish that out. Or if you just type part of the command, it'll still work. For example, if I type show run and hit enter, it will work. So let's take a look and see. I'm just going to hit the space bar to go a page at a time. And so let's see what happens when we get past port 48. Ah, there we go. I said 48, I meant 54, counting those transceiver ports. There's the slot end, and look, slot 2/0. There's our second switch, all the way to port 54. So everything worked correctly. That's awesome. We have successfully stacked 2 of these FS S5500-48T6SP-R layer 3 managed switches. If this was helpful for you, please subscribe, click the bell icon. You'll be notified for other videos we do that will be very similar to this. We also review all kinds of technology. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye.